Hello, and today we will inaugurate the first episode in our Who's Who's of Watchmaking series dedicated to individual brands, and we will do so with URWERK, the independent brand that kind of led the way to a new and fresh approach on the watchmaking planet some 20 years ago, because yes, URWERK has turned 20 in 2017. Time really flies. URWERK has for sure opened an exciting door when it comes to creative watchmaking in the late 1990s with its very own reinterpretation of what a timepiece could be, offering something radically different in terms of time display and general design, but nevertheless respecting and taking some of its inspiration from traditional watchmaking in terms of technique and finishing, for instance. And we will go over all the main models presented by this iconic brand later on in this video. So before getting to know better URWERK, I just wanted to mention that in this new series of Who's Who of Watchmaking, we will focus on each brand's history, their key moments and developments, and naturally timepieces, rather than on its current people. We know that CEOs and other people change, sometimes ownership too, as we exposed it in the first part of this series dedicated to the power group of the industry, and this is particularly valid for the historical brands. Nevertheless, when it comes to these newcomers of the watchmaking scene, these independent brands in particular, well, the personality of their founders and the entrepreneurial dimension behind each project is something key in understanding these brands, reason why we will naturally put their founders forward. And in the case of URWERK, well, we will talk, of course, of Felix Baumgartner and Martin Frei, who will shortly tell us how they met, what was their inspiration, what was and still is the philosophy behind URWERK, and I can promise you that to have Felix Baumgartner on video is already quite an achievement. Felix comes more or less from a watchmaking family, his father, for instance, being a watch and clock restorer, and this has for sure influenced or developed his eye and understanding about watchmaking. After Swiss mandatory school, he attended the only watchmaking school on the German part of this small country, and after getting his diploma, well, he could not really see himself join one of those big established brands, and he had the great opportunity of working for Sven Anderson, an independent master watchmaker. So Felix left the Swiss-German part and came to the big watchmaking capital of the world, a small town or big village named Geneva. Okay, after this chauvinistic assertion, let's talk about Martin Frey. His dad was an engineer, and he was quite fascinated as a kid by some of these technical machines his father was around, but nevertheless his mind was more set on artistic matters, reason why he attended an art school in Lucerne, one of the only one in the country to offer a sculpture curriculum. So already interested by the three dimensions of things. When I said that Felix's family was quite influenced by watchmaking, well, I have to add that his brother was also kind of involved, but being more focused on automatons. And to make a long story short, well, their cousin was attending the same art school as Martin, and that's how they met. But now it's their turn to give us their side of the story, so let's go.
When we met, my cousin, as he told, was also working actually in the art school in Lucerne. And so during these meetings with my brother, also Thomas, actually we were thinking about watches, what watchmaking today, what can be a watch, questions, very basic questions. What is the reason of mechanical watchmaking today? Why? And the precision, you know, quartz, atom, mechanic, these revolutions were already there. And then actually somehow came back the idea of that night clock, that very simple way of indicating the time, very simple. And this is something, this idea actually was exchanged during a moment. And then Martin had very quickly a very simple idea to indicate that in a case, to bring that to life in a watch, actually. Because at the time we have only seen that indication in a clock, so we thought first, okay, we can bring it into a watch. At the time in haute horlogerie in the 90s, beginning 90s, actually it was all about complicated watchmaking. The master of complication, someone is telling that in Geneva, one of these independents, and so they put many hands and many tourbillons in a watch, and this was not we didn't want to go there and measure our muscles with these guys. We had to find a different way. So, and actually to combine, you know, the artistic approach and watchmaking, to bring this together. Yeah.
Happily they brought actually this idea of the time indication where the hours indicate the minutes. When I have to admit that when I saw it the first time, I was thinking, there was a time and there was this watch existing that I had in mind where you had like different color hours. And I was like, oh, okay, another kind of... First I was like this, how can one read the time? But obviously you learn quickly how it really works. And then you see, or that's what happened in time when I started making drawings and so, I started to realize that because the layout is different, because it's kind of indicating time in a different way, one can actually really redefine the watch to a certain degree. And that chance that was already in this time indication that Felix brought along, coming from that antique clock, that actually enabled or allowed me to look at it from a different side. So the layout was different, it was asymmetrical. First of all, the time indication was on one side, so there was a lot of space in the case for other things. One could make it three-dimensional and so forth, and also the philosophical side of it I found very interesting, that you have like this 1 hour at the time to orient yourself. So the other hours, they are stored away, they are not important, but that 1 hour is valued more, and it's the unique time quantum that you have in order to know where you are. It was a very minimalistic approach, only the time indication, and then that slower movement of the hour actually, because you had to go a shorter distance, so it was half as fast as a regular hand. And if then you have a different time indication, of course, you're kind of like shocked when you see it, and that moment I think helped us a lot.
So now you have to imagine you take this approach of very minimalistic time telling, only a number moving. You do that in a very pure case, contemporary case, but then you spend the hours you need to make it work, because it's a bit complicated mechanism. You take this piece and you go to the Academy on the side of the vitrine of Philippe Dufour, and you show this concept. And then on top you name it URWERK. You don't name it Jean-Claude, I don't know, a nice French name. You name it URWERK. So that happened actually 97, 20 years ago, and that was kind of a shock, because the people were just not able to understand from where we come and what we are doing here on the side of Philippe Dufour in the Academy. And so that was kind of the first moment, very, very special moment, how we arrived on the scene, you know, and that was just perfect.
And also thanks to Mr. Andersen, who made it possible for us to exhibit at the Basel World, the Basel exhibition. We were of course able to show what we were doing. So we had like our first 3 models placed on heating plates, like the things that you usually use to cook a soup, to heat up a soup. So we had our 3 models there, you know, on a 3, you know, parts heating plate, served as something new and hot. And so that was also something that they didn't really.
Now on the side you had the polished mahogany cases, you know, open with a little nice golden, because it was not possible to have a steel. At that category you need to have a golden one. So we did everything wrong actually. So this is how we started.
Okay, we got to hear what motivated them, but how were they organized at the time, and how did they work together?
It was just the 3 of us, and there was their atelier. Actually in Carnava, close to the train station, nice place.
It was Geneva and New York, actually.
Yeah, exactly. At the time, I just moved to New York. So at the beginning, we didn't see each other a lot of times. You know, it also was slow and grew slowly, as it still does. But it was even more slow at the very beginning. But also had a lot of time in New York. I got my first computer there, you know, and I was able to somehow experiment with it at the 3D programs. I was able to somehow figure it out. And I was working on the 103 after these two first models that we did. And so they would come to New York, you know, maybe once a year and the other way around.
Yeah, we had a crazy German actually with the art of watchmaking.
Boris Lietzov.
Which actually, he placed the very first order, like of 3 watches, something like that. And he opened this same year, 97, his art of watchmaking in the Bergdorf Goodman in New York. And that was just for us incredible to arrive in Basel, exhibit, and being able to sell a watch to New York. And then, but suddenly we understood after 1 or 2 years, even quicker, that actually he sold more Cédric Joner than URWERK in his shop. So we understood that actually the market, the Cédric Joner piece was more like a classical, like a tonneau shaped, a little bit in the Frank Muller style, but more like a piece you already have seen somewhere. So like a more traditional watchmaking. So we understood actually it's a tough way to create, to open up a new direction. And it took us probably 7-8 years until 2003 when we presented the 103, as he told. It was super tough. Actually, the independent, our approach of contemporary watchmaking was more or less impossible. It was really just super marginal. We made like 5 watches per year by hand. Hand delivered each one, and it was just absolutely commercially it was a nightmare. But we had intense moments in the ateliers, and each watch sold was kind of a bottle of champagne and the cigarette and the party, you know.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
This is something we have to remember a bit, because independent watch, or let's say La Nouvelle Horlogerie, today is kind of something which exists. You can even see brands like Audemars Piguet or Hublot are doing this kind of watchmaking today. But at the time, 15-20 years ago, it was just not existing.
So as a quick recap, the first models launched in 1997 were the UR101 and 102. They are more or less the same apart from the case material. Then came in the 103 in 2003 with something very distinctive of URWERK, with a control board on the case backside, which already allowed the proud, or let's say audacious owner to play around with the regulating screw. This notion of interactivity between the owner and the machine is something very dear to URWERK, as we will see even further later on. There has naturally been several variations of the 103, and in 2007 came another UFO with the 201, with, for the first time, the hour markers positioned on small rotating cubes and no longer on disc. In 2009 they introduced quite an extraordinary watch, the URCC1, codenamed the King Cobra, and this timepiece necessitated almost 10 years of a long development period with its linear time display. URWERK made only a few of this URCC1, and I think it just looks very, very cool. 2010 gave the 203 and the 202, an evolution of the 201, and in 2011 we saw the 110, the 110, with for the first time the minute counter position on the right part of the case, and in 2012 came what I personally think as one of my great watch of all time, the UR210, and its distinctive massive 60-minute retrograde hand. I just love this watch, and I'm very fortunate of wearing one today. Thank you URWERK for the little treat, but one day, maybe one day, you will be mine, or not. Well, in 2014 they introduced the 105, a kind of simpler model, if one can say this, with the return of rotating disc for the hour marker. So this kind of wraps up very shortly the evolution of the different models of the URWERK collection, But this would not be complete if I didn't mention the UR1001, one of the craziest and coolest pocket watch of all time. Only a few models have been produced, including a full platinum version weighing 1 full kilo, and even a crazier version with the addition of a rather eccentric accessory which enables the wearer to wear this watch as a wristwatch. Okay, you might need to be the Rock to wear it, but original and audacious for sure. But let's not forget the EMC, introduced in 2013, a very interesting and innovative timepiece, housing not only URWERK's first very own movement fully developed in-house, but also an embarked electronic oscillator which lets you assess in real time the movement's good functioning with a plus or minus indicator activated on demand. And this info will let you adjust by yourself the regulating organ of the watch. So quite neat, I have to say. So yet another originality, and let's go back to Felix and Martin to discover more about their creative adventure.
The EMC is kind of is really part of our proof of innovation and research all the time. This is what we love to do. I found actually quite a reason for the EMC, electromechanical control watch, which only can a watchmaker find. It's actually the dream that you can regulate and control your own mechanical watch on your wrist. And a watchmaker does that in his atelier with an electronical machine to have the accuracy and the amplitude. And at the EMC, actually, what we did is we miniaturized this machine, which needs electronical power, which has sensors and the whole electronical software plate into a watch. And this I developed with a little team of these electronician people I met during 4 or 5 years, and that resulted in the EMC, which is quite a special piece. And we're quite proud that we got some prizes in the watch industry on that. We had to do our own movement, even our own balance wheel, to be able to measure the frequency, to be able to measure it with this electronical device we have. So for sure, it was a nice step also to go really deep into the heart of a watch in doing our own balance wheel. This we didn't before. So we stepped deeper into mechanical worlds, let's say, in the electronical world. And actually the electronical world is only to have a comprehension of the mechanic. It's serving to the mechanical world. So it's just a perfect tool where you are involved. You get involved in the process of wearing and controlling the precision of your watch. Actually, you need some knowledge to understand. So it's kind of probably like for Breguet 2,200 years ago with the tourbillon. It's not so easy to make understand what is the reason of a tourbillon. And actually it's more or less the same problematic of the EMC, but you can get it, it's possible.
So how is this company organized today, and how do they see themselves in the future?
The way URWERK grew, as we said before, I was in New York, and Felix and Thomas at the beginning were here in Geneva. And so from the beginning on we were in different places. Now I'm in Zurich, I'm closer by now, but we have our company exists actually in different places in Switzerland. So we really crossed
probably even the only company really crossing this Röstigraben. I don't know if you know this expression, you know, of the French and the Swiss German part, you know. And we have this in Zurich. Actually, we have like 4 places we view on the side of design. Then we have the engineers in Aarau, which is on the way from Geneva to Zurich. Then we have Beaumont, which are actually producing the parts, assembling. This is in Albisrieden in Zurich, and then we have here in Geneva assembling, final assembling, controlling, and the administration is here in Geneva. So we are like 13, 14, 15 people. So, yes, working actually on a stable level since 10 years, more or less 10 years now, on 150 watches per year.
Where do you see URWERK in 20 years then?
That we will find out step by step.
Actually, as we do experiments with each research, but before you do the experiment, you don't know exactly where you end up. So honestly, we go on doing this research and experiments, and it will be very exciting the next 2 years. We have very nice things coming on both sides, on our, let's say, traditional, more our own culture, the satellite side, but also on the side of the chronometry, the research of precision, and also on that side we have extremely cool stuff coming, so we are looking forward and super curious by ourselves too.
Mm.
Oh yeah, we can trust them on this. And in terms of other timepieces, I just wanted to mention the nitroglycerin project done in 2012 in collaboration with MBNF and one of URWERK's very own constructors, Cyrano de Vantais, a very original limited edition of 12 pieces with which featured a Wankel engine-like type of display, something I had never seen elsewhere. And when I say nitroglycerin, well, actually the real logo of this project was the actual chemical formula for nitroglycerin, so not so easy to remember on the top of your head. And for each new model that I talked before, well, we have naturally seen different variations of these watches coming along in terms of very special materials used, something very important for URWERK, or special engraved versions and even gem set versions. But I have to say that one that really got me going was the variations of the 110, the UR110, called the Eastwood, and I could totally see myself wearing this watch on a daily basis. Fancy, dandy-esque and original. And to finish this episode, well, of course, I have to say a couple of words regarding the UR-T8 introduced at the 2017 SIHH, as this timepiece is naturally also quite eccentric with its reversal-like feature and this special T-Rex-like machine case. But if you want to know more about this special anniversary piece, I naturally invite you to see the video report produced at the time about it. So, well, I guess URWERK will continue to surprise us in the years to come, not only in terms of its very distinctive take on timepiece design, but very certainly on some other crazy mechanical developments. So, this is it for this first episode, and yes, I know it was rather long, but the good news is that it could have been even longer, so not too bad. So, well, anyhow, thanks for your time and see you real soon.